You ready and rolling?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon. We're announcing an arrest in a senseless killing that occurred on November 23rd. Markesia Dawkins was killed while waiting at a bus stop on Farrington Road in DeKalb County. DeKalb Police detectives worked tirelessly to investigate this tragic incident. Through their hard work, they were able to identify 18-year-old Christopher Merritt of Lithonia and charged him with this crime. We turned the warrants over to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office Fugitive Squad, who later located and arrested Mr. Merritt. Through further investigations, our detectives were also able to link Mr. Merritt to several other crimes with which he has been charged. I want to remind everybody that this is still an active and ongoing criminal investigation, and we're not able to answer many questions about these additional crimes. But I will call on Assistant Chief Mike Yarbrough of our Criminal Investigation Division to provide the available details. Chief Yarbrough.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. Again, we're here to talk about the November 23rd event where Markesia Dawkins was shot and killed while she was waiting on the bus stop to go to work. Our detectives responded and were able to obtain evidence, talk to witnesses, and get video surveillance of the incident that occurred. Through that evidence, we were able to identify the suspect, Christopher Merritt of Lithonia. We were able to obtain warrants for murder, and we were able to turn those warrants over to the DeKalb Sheriff's Office, who responded on November the 26th to try to identify and locate Christopher Merritt. Further investigation led detectives to discover evidence to this case, as well as subsequent cases throughout, that helped us identify sexual assaults that Christopher Merritt was suspected to be involved with. We were able to obtain further warrants for that said sexual assault. On November the 28th, Friday, Christopher Merritt was brought into custody by the DeKalb Sheriff's Office Fugitive Squad. He was at 5810 Trent Walk Drive, a vacant apartment. He was charged with additional assaults, and at this point we have charges for 1 count of murder, 3 counts rape, 3 counts of armed robbery, 1 count of aggravated sodomy, 1 count aggravated assault, 1 count of aggravated sexual battery, 3 counts of false imprisonment, and our investigation continues. As we do continue through here, we do suspect that we will have forthcoming charges on Christopher Merritt. This tragic event led to the death of a young woman who was waiting on the bus to go to work in broad daylight at 10 a.m. in the morning on Farrington Road. Tragic, but I hope what we've done here through the diligent effort of our detectives and investigators throughout, we've been able to bring some resolution and some comfort to the families and the victims of these crimes. I must thank our detectives for their week-long efforts that led to the investigation, identification, and subsequent arrest of Christopher Merritt. I also must thank our DeKalb Sheriff's Office and their fugitive unit for their diligent efforts as well of going out tirelessly throughout the nights in finding, locating, and arresting Christopher Merritt and bringing him into our custody, which has led to our investigation that has revealed quite a few other charges. At this point, I will turn it over to Sheriff Mann for any comments that he might have.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I would first like to extend certainly our sympathies to the family of Ms. Dawkins and the terrible tragedy that has occurred on November 23rd. I would also like to commend the DeKalb County Police Department for quickly identifying the suspect. When they turned the warrants over to the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office on November 26th, our fugitive detectives, as has been indicated, quickly responded into action, and within 48 hours brought Mr. Merritt, apprehended Mr. Merritt in a vacant apartment in Lithonia. I'd like to commend our deputies for their quick action and again their diligent efforts in locating and apprehending Mr. Merritt for this heinous crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I too want to commend the employees of the Sheriff's Department. I think their quick action in locating Mr. Merritt probably prevented additional crimes. So at this time, we'll open the floor for a few questions.
Did Mr. Merritt know the victim at all? Was there any relationship or stranger to stranger?
We have no indication that that he knew the victim.
How many other victims are there?
We're still investigating a number of different cases to try and to determine how many that Mr. Merritt may have been
Based on
involved
the
in.
charges that have been taken on, how many victims are there?
I'm going to bring Chief Yarborough up here. He'll know the specifics for that.
At this point, we are looking at a minimum of 4 and upwards to 5 separate victims over the last couple of years.
Does that include Ms. Dawkins?
It does.
And Chief, can you tell us how you linked the suspect to these other cases? I mean, there's a laundry list of charges he's facing now.
Correct. At this point, we don't want to release some of that information because we, like I said, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have quite a few people to talk to throughout, including some of the other witnesses and some of the victims, to try to identify a few other items that would help us in this case or set of cases.
What was the motive with Ms. Dawkins? Do you think he was attempting a sexual assault there and it went terribly wrong? I mean, what was the motive for the murder? What's the narrative of what happened?
Well, again, with that case, there was an intent to rob that we found, and there is a potential, obviously, with other cases that we've identified so far, there is a potential for a sexual assault, but we don't know what was in his mind at that time.
And I know you can't answer details because it's an ongoing investigation, but are you able to say what led you into these other cases and these other victims?
Again, at this point, I would like to stray away from that. Again, we have several other cases that we're looking at in addition to these, and if we walk down that path, it could open up things that we don't want to at this point.
But you indicated it was evidence. Was it evidence that you found at his home?
DNA?
We do have physical evidence and other evidence that does lead us to believe that Mr. Hawkins is involved with these incidents and other crimes as well.
Based on the number of victims, would you call him a serial rapist?
At this point, we know that we've got at least 3 separate cases of sexual assault. And that would, gear ourselves to thinking that we have a series of rapes and other sexual assaults with this particular suspect.
And was he on your radar prior to the attack on Ms. Dawkins?
He was not particularly at this point in time with these cases, and there's a couple of reasons behind that. We do have some separation of distance and location that came into play, and we were able to identify a way to link those together through the evidence. But that's as much as I want to speak on.
Are all 3 of your victims, your sexual assault victims, from DeKalb County, or is it spread around?
At this point, the sexual assault victims that we're speaking of are all DeKalb County.
And what's the time frame of their attacks?
The ones that we're dealing with now go back as far as 2013. But again, we have to look further and around to make sure that we don't have any other victims that are out there. And that's why it's very important that we have press conferences like this, not only to bring that resolution to the family, but also other victims that may come forward that have dealt with this suspect in the past.
How old are those victims approximately? This is a very young suspect. 18 he is? How old are your victims?
I don't have that information before me right now, but we can get that to you later.
Did he know the victims or were they random attacks?
Everything that we have and understands at this point is that he does not know the victims particularly.
Is he affiliated with a high school at all?
I don't have that information before me, no. But we
And you
can-
said he was found in a vacant apartment. Can you tell us any more? I mean, had he just set up shop there temporarily or was hiding out from you folks?
Chip, you want to talk about that?
Yes. Well, through our normal intelligence, we were able to determine that he was located at this particular apartment, vacant, abandoned apartment. We don't like to disclose specifically how we obtained that information, as it may jeopardize other cases. But he was located at a vacant, abandoned apartment on Trent Walk in Lithonia.
Is that his address that you?
No.
That appears his address?
It was not his address.
So where was his address? Is that going to be Lithonia?
I'll get that information to you. I don't have his, I believe he, according to records, he does reside in Lithonia, but not at that address.
The evidence you collected, was it found at that apartment, that vacant apartment, or the address that he lives in?
We have a great deal of evidence from several locations and several different methods. So yes, there is evidence there and other places as well.
Did you recover the purse?
One more question, wrap it up.
At this point, we're not discussing the purse offer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you go into any further detail about the circumstances of his arrest, or, I mean, it's the circumstances of his arrest, I mean, how he was found in the apartment?
He was arrested without incident. He was taken into custody. He did not resist at all, so, according to our deputy, so.
So you mentioned robbery. Somebody standing at a bus stop, I wouldn't think would have a lot of money. Did he take much money from her?
I don't have the exact amount of what he's taken, but he did take property from the victim at the bus stop. And it just, again, just the thing that strikes me the most is we're talking about 10 o'clock in the morning at a crowded street bus stop, and the blazing way that he came across and assaulted this lady. And to have him off the street today brings, again, security to my mind, and I hope to the DeKalb County citizens for the efforts that we've put forth today.
Were
throughout
there
this week.
witnesses to that crime?
There are witnesses to the crime, and there is video evidence of the crime.
And you mentioned 3 counts of armed robbery. Did he rob and rape these other 3 victims?
The robberies are inclusive with the other rapes and sexual assaults, yes.
We'll go ahead and close. I do have some photographs of Mr. Merritt that we will pass out to you. Okay. Thank you very much.
How you doing, Chief?
How you doing?
Good to see you again.
He just took all my photographs there.
You took all of them? Oh, okay.
He's handing them out for me, helping out.
Oh, yeah, you're good. I just saw you recently.